Happy days, folks. It's Kyle from Media Sandwich with a new series of movie reviews that I wanted to do. Long story short, these are bargain bin movies. I used to be a bargain bin sifter. I would go through them. Then 2020 happened, and now I don't want to touch any of that shit. But long story short, I went to the Dollar Tree, which is one of my favorite things to do. I went to the Dollar Tree and wasted $5 or $6 on some standard definition DVDs. First and foremost, Diablo, a Western. Everybody knows, if you listen to the podcast, you know I love a Western. And this one, it's starring Eastwood. It's starring Scott Eastwood. They really want to make him look like his dad on this cover, and it's got a very like Red Dead Redemption kind of cover look to it. But it's starring Scott Eastwood. But the big deal for me, Walton Goggins. I saw this, it caught my eye because it's got this kind of reflective slipcover on it, which looked kind of snazzy opposite some of the other dollar store DVDs. But yeah, it's got the slipcover, which a lot of them didn't. A lot of them were just kind of bare bones DVDs, and this is Diablo. Beyond hope, beyond regret, beyond salvation. They can't use the word redemption there, so they had to find some other stuff. I don't know, it looks kind of fun. It's Scott Eastwood. It's too easy of a joke to call him Scott Plank of Eastwood or Scott Block of Eastwood, but he's never really shown a lot of personality in the things that he's been in. He looks a hell of a lot like his dad. Everybody knows that, and that's the basis of his career, I think. Especially in this, he's got, if you look here on the back, look at that. They've given him the kind of big old chops that his dad had back in the spaghetti western days of the 60s. Either it went through 5 or 6 generic working titles before they just said, oh, screw it, give it the name Diablo. There's a devil in him, so he's a Diablo, because you can't just say devil, because that's a elevator movie or something. So it's Diablo, which is a very generic title. It's either that, or the literal devil shows up in this movie, which, if it's a dollar store movie, that's a possibility that Walton Goggins plays, like, the actual, like, devil. This is funny, it's rated R for violence and brief language. Brief. Usually they use the word brief to qualify nudity. Brief language, is that like somebody curses, like, once? If that's the case, that means it's rated R almost solely based on the violence, so maybe a shootout? Who knows? The last time that I bought a Dollar Tree Western, it was not good. It was Stagecoach, the Texas Jack story, or the Legend of Texas Jack. It was Trace Adkins was the star. Judd Nelson was the best part of the movie as his sidekick. I think this is going to be better. If I'm only holding Diablo up to Stagecoach, the Texas Jack story, or whatever it is called, I think this is bound to be better. Something tells me Scott Eastwood is at very least a better actor than Trace Adkins. Walton Goggins is a terrific actor, even when the material is spotty. I think this might be really dumb fun.
They took my wife.
Get out of my house.
Came in the night and they took her. You know where they're headed? On the South Trail, towards Mexico. You be careful.
Jackson,
You remember me?
who could forget? Saw a group of riders yesterday, and one woman.
I was mad at the worst of their kind.
soul. They call you Diablo. He's killed more men than you met in your lifetime. If anything happens to me, you run from here.
Your fight's with me.
My fight is with everybody. Now say your prayer. Say it! We live or we die. We are to the Lord. Bring it to me!
That might just be a favor to you.
So I'm back from screening Diablo. I actually watched it while I was on the exercise bike because I'm trying to get rid of my COVID-19, if you will. Boy, this was a movie, all right. In terms of was it worth the $1 that I spent on it at the Dollar Tree? Yes, worth every penny. All 100 of them. Is it good? In spots, this is a solid, like, C+ movie. In other spots, it is just a firm, middle-of-the-road D. And in other spots, it's utter trash. And in other spots, it's surprisingly really good. It's all over the place. Is it better than The Legend of Texas Jack, the Stagecoach, rather, the Trace Adkins movie that I was talking about earlier? Yeah, far better than that. Way better movie. I know who shot this movie? The DP of this movie is Dean Cundey! Dean Cundey, the man who shot every movie from our childhood, you know? The guy who shot every Robert Zemeckis movie, the Back to the Future trilogy, Roger Rabbit. He shot all of John Carpenter's best stuff, Halloween up through Escape from New York and The Thing. The guy, he's a living legend. He's one of the best DPs in modern movie history. Lately, he's been doing a lot of garbage, though. Like, for the last pretty much 10 years, he's been doing nothing but garbage. He did Jack and Jill, that Adam Sandler movie. He did Diablo, for one thing. That was really surprising. Especially considering, and I don't know how to say this, I talked about how generic the title for Diablo is, and that's fitting because a lot of other stuff in the movie is maddeningly generic. But we'll get into why later. One alternate title I could have named Diablo is Dean Cundey Bought a Drone. There is a lot of drone aerial landscape footage just kind of peppered throughout, especially the first act or so of the movie. You can tell because it has that kind of, you know, that not choppy, that very, like, ridiculously smooth movement to it that doesn't look like a helicopter shot. And it seemed like it was in a different resolution. That might just be that I was watching standard def DVD. I don't know. But the drone footage was distracting for the first, the first third of the movie or so. At one point, we meet up with some indigenous people, and there's some peyote involved. And there is a POV shot of Scott Eastwood on peyote that looks like a 1990s music video. Like a real, like, it's, you know, film negative, like, you know, highlighted with purple and bright yellows, and it really didn't fit the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie, one thing I'll say that's great for Dean Cundey is a lot of great natural lighting, a lot of very soft, you know, daylight hues, and, you know, very reminiscent of the cover, you know, like nice oranges and yellows, and then suddenly we get this POV shot, and I know, okay, he's on peyote, but it just felt so weird to step into, like, a Red Hot Chili Peppers video for, like, just a couple of seconds. Speaking of a couple of seconds, this movie is edited to an inch of its life. It is, like, we cannot sit for longer than 10 seconds on any shot in this movie. It keeps frenetically cutting to something else, almost like they keep a shot on Scotty Eastwood. I'm calling him Scotty like he's my friend. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. They keep the camera on Eastwood's face, and I'm like sitting there going, okay, now let's take a look at this kid's acting. Let's see if he can show me something internal just with his eyes, just as he's like sitting and staring into a fire or something like that. Nope, we're gone. We're over this way. And comes back to him and, okay, now we're gonna get, nope, we're... Every couple of seconds we had to chop to something next. And I know it's economical storytelling. You've got 80 minutes for this movie. So you've got no time at all to tell a story visually, and there's no way you can, pack a bunch of dialogue into it, because it's mostly one guy and his horse riding through the woods. It's noticeably trying to cover up something, it feels like. It's trying to cover up maybe a lack of depth, not just to his acting, but also maybe to, just what's going on in a scene. I will say this also for Dean Cundey. There is one shot near the finale that is... really interesting. It's a mirror shot. He's in an enclosed space in a room. There's a mirror. Guy pops up in the mirror, who's behind him with a shotgun. He dodges away, shotgun blast, mirror explodes into nothing, and it's just the wall behind it. It was a cool shot. Didn't really amount to much. It kind of reminded me of the Avengers, the first one, where Captain America gets up and does a whole little dialogue, like a couple lines of dialogue in the mirror of a downed motorcycle, and you're sitting in the theater watching going, that's an interesting shot. Why that? And the answer is, Joss Whedon got bored. And in this case, I think Dean Cundey, or possibly the director, got bored. Technically, from a technical point of view, it's a lot more proficient than I expected. It's a pretty well put together little indie movie. As far as the acting goes, Scott Eastwood, he's fine. He's fine. He's really stiff for the first... He's really stiff for most of the movie. He's really stiff for, like, the first hour of this hour and 20-minute movie. But that's because he's going up against, like, all of these terrific actors. Walton Goggins, Adam Beach shows up, and then Danny Glover. I mean, come on. These guys know what to do, even with bad dialogue, and all of them have bad dialogue. Adam Beach, it's helped by the fact that he doesn't speak it in English, so he can really put a lot of gravitas into those lines. Even when I'm reading the subtitles, I'm like, that's not a good line, but okay. I mean, he's selling it. Goggins is great. He's doing everything he can with the most rudimentary, obvious dialogue. He's got all of these big villain speeches. It's like they wrote the Joker in the Old West for him. One thing I found was weird. You know how Walton Goggins has those perfect, straight, white teeth? His definitely not real teeth. They're kind of like his calling card, his big old teeth. They color corrected his teeth. I don't know if they stained them with something in production or if they post-production like color corrected, but his teeth were like noticeably dirty, and I found that kind of cute that somebody was thinking, we can't have him with these perfect white teeth. So that was fun. I'm gonna get into some spoilers here. Overall, the thing about Diablo that's infuriating is that it's a very, very obvious movie that still feels it necessary to explain itself way too much and way too explicitly. So there's no abduction. It opens in media res, kind of, with Scott Eastwood stumbling out of a burning house. No introduction, no build-up, no, here's who the wife is, so that we know who he's going after. So the wife character is 100% just an item, just an object, but there's a purpose to that. There's a reason why. There's some sloppy visual storytelling going on when he first meets Walton Goggins. Goggins disappears from his first scene like Batman. Like, they're fighting, they're tussling, they fall over. Eastwood jumps up and Goggins is gone, like Batman. And you're not really sure that that's what was being communicated because the scene is shot so poorly and it's choreographed so kind of haphazardly. But there's purpose to that. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for all of these things, and chiefly the storytelling is really basic, just very, very basic Western stuff, like very episodic, like every 10 or 15 minutes is a new little episode for him. So, big twist of the movie is he gets to Danny Glover, and Danny Glover is really leery of him, and Scott Eastwood just suddenly goes berserk because Walton Goggins has appeared. I put that in bunny rabbit ear quoties because turns out Walton Goggins and Scott Eastwood are the same person. It is a Fight Club twist in this very, very basic Western. And then you start to realize, okay, that's why there's no introduction at all, because it would give away the twist. That's why Walton Goggins disappearing from that scene is so odd and doesn't really work well visually. It's because he was never really there. It turns out he's kind of like a serial killer. It's kind of like we've stuffed a serial killer story, the most basic of serial killer stories, into the most basic of Westerns, like a bland turducken. When I saw the twist coming about 5 minutes before it actually is revealed, I went, oh no, don't do that. And then it did it, and I'm like, okay. I lived with the twist for a few minutes. I'm like, okay, this is fine. This is actually kind of interesting. This comes back to the acting. Scott Eastwood as the main character, Jackson, I forgot his name because he's nothing. He is nothing. As Jackson, he is very, very stiff. He's very wooden. I made that joke earlier, Scott Plank of Eastwood. But then, for this last 20 minutes, he puts on a Walton Goggins impression a little bit, and he's attempting something here. He's trying something in the last 20 minutes of the movie, and he's doing okay. He's doing fine. For this level of movie, I think that he did a decent job with that particular portion of his role. And all of this, the twist explains why the rest of his role is just kind of a nothing sandwich. That doesn't excuse for the fact that we get to the hour mark of an hour and 20-minute movie, and the movie starts. This is the weirdest part, is that we don't have a hero at this point. The hero turns out to be the villain. Whoa! And then we have 20 minutes left of the movie. That's a bad choice. That's a very bad choice. So the final shootout, there are no stakes, because we know things are going to end badly for everyone, essentially. And then we just cut to black and gunshots. Okay, that's a clear-cut case of you don't know how to end this movie, so we better kill everybody. Like, it really felt like somebody was like, we're doing this straight-laced Western. Big twist! It turns out it's this totally weird, off-center, psychological thriller of a Western. Okay, that's a good turn to make. You should have made it earlier in the movie, but whatever, I'm in now. And then we get to the final shootout, and it's kind of like they're trying to go for a Robert Rodriguez Desperado shoot 'em out, but the shootout is shot very static. It's just, here's Scott, bang, bang, here's another shot of the dude going, and falling over, like a 1950s Western, like an episode of Rawhide or something. It really had no kinetic action in it whatsoever. I had a lot to say, as it turns out. I had a lot to say about Diablo. For $1, totally worth the investment. Totally worth the 80 minutes, too. It was nice and short, so there's that. It wasn't that big a deal. If this movie had been 2 hours long, I would have been furious. It's fine. It's fine. It's a real... It lives up to its Dollar Tree origins in my mind. That was the perfect place to find Diablo on DVD, is at the Dollar Tree. Ultimately, Diablo was fine. It was fine. As far as the rest of the stack of movies that I have that I got from the Dollar Tree goes, I'm sure this one might actually turn out to be the best one. It's not nearly the run-of-the-mill throwaway Western that it looks like, although the first hour or so is. And it's only an hour and 20 minutes, so, complicated feelings on it. But overall, not a bad watch. If you're like me and you live and breathe Westerns, give it a watch. Thanks for joining me for Diablo and the Bargain Bin DVD review. I'm Kyle, and this was a Media Sandwich video. If you like Media Sandwich stuff, listen to our podcast. You can find everything that we do at media-sandwich.com, or you can look us up on Twitter, media_sandwich. Thanks for joining me.